Alright, today what we're doing is working on replacing the exhaust manifold on the left hand side of this van. It's a 1991 Dodge B250 to 318. I was trying to change the O2 sensor and it stripped out of the manifold. So we're going to go through a few of the steps to get that manifold out so it can be repaired. So what you see here is the manifold is right up against the floor of the doghouse. So there's not much of a chance of getting this out without moving the engine. So what I did was took out the studs and the bolts holding the manifold on, took off the part of the EGR piping, and there's not really a lot else that can be done in the van. For the bolts up here, I went through the wheel well to get to them. You can reach through in here. I just used a long extension. So what you're going to need is some 1/2 inch wrenches, some 9/16 wrenches. Then I used a long extension bar. You can use whatever you really want to. Then I used the swivel for a couple of the fasteners. The impact swivels work a lot better than the cheaper ones that are like universal joints. Then just a couple wrenches. The O2 sensor is going to be a 7/8 wrench to get it off. So you can see the threads are completely fine in the old O2 sensor, but it ripped them out of the manifold. And I'm hoping I might be able to grind the manifold down that far and reach the interior threads. If not, we'll look at getting the manifold repaired or replaced, depending on what it costs to do that. And you can get a fancy sensor remover, but in the end, if you're removing your O2 sensor, just rip it out. There's not much of a point in trying to save it. And another problem I was having was the getting a lot of noise from the catalytic converter. So the material on the inside is gone, like almost like glass. Some of it's pretty hard. It's not like the soft stuff. This actually came out of the muffler, so I have to take the muffler off and clean it out. And it's just this catalytic converter is completely failed. It's just full of trash on the inside. I was having some problems with the power at the low end. It wasn't really working too well, so I'll be getting a new catalytic converter for that. Then just to get it off of the van, I split the one pipe where it goes onto the Y pipe, and then I pulled this out of the muffler on the other end. So this is a conversion van, as you can see, so there's actually quite a bit going on. You got the ground effects, then you have the sewer drain pipe that has to be contended with crawling underneath. You can see there's a 40-pound propane tank under here as well. And then there's the muffler. So trying to get the catalytic converter out was a bit of a problem, but was able to get it out. And then so there's the end of the Y pipe. And further up you'll be able to see the exhaust manifold. So I just use a torch to cut off the two bolts holding the Y pipe to the manifold. And I think the next step is going to be to remove the engine mount on the left hand side to lower down the manifold. I haven't quite figured that part out. That's why we're making the video today, because there was no instructional videos on YouTube, so I thought I could try and add something for everybody. So I'll just stop, we'll do some work here, and then I'll get back and show you how it goes. Alright, so we're working on getting the engine mount off on the left hand side. I had to use another one of these swivels. It's a 3/4 inch sockets I'm using to take off the engine mount. So there's one up in here, another one in here, then there's 3 more on either side of the engine mount. So this thing is mounted quite solidly. Would it be nicer to do the passenger side? It's a lot more open, but unfortunately that's not the case. So then here's the Y pipe. It's got another support on this side. It's mounted pretty rigidly, so I might have to take the Y pipe off to get the manifold out. We shall see later on. It's going to be a long, drawn-out battle by the looks of it, so probably won't get it done tonight. Start after supper. So we'll take a look and try to get this thing out, and if not, we will continue later on. Alright, it turned out to be pretty easy to get the engine mount out. So all I did was use a piece of rail tracks I had laying around, and there was a hole in the bottom of the engine that actually was pretty good at receiving the mag sockets. Of course, if you had something better to use, that would be okay by me. So I got the engine mount out, no problem. So I'm going to try and lower the engine down and see if there's enough space to get the manifold out. I also wanted to mention the ramps that I have. I prefer using 2x12s rather than the purpose-built ramps. These are a lot less likely to break, and you can control how much landing space you have at the top and the steps. So you just generally have like a 6-inch step, or you could make them longer if you wanted to, but these are a full 2x12 on each side, cut in half and then cut down further, so they're fairly heavy, so it works out pretty good anyway. Alright, so this is with the engine down with just the rubber spacer of the engine mount removed. So we're pretty close now. The fan is actually touching on the fan shroud, and it was also touching when I had the engine lifted all the way out to get the engine mount out. When the engine was up for the engine mount, there was almost enough space to get the manifold out at that point, but not quite. So I think with the shroud removed, we got a pretty good chance of getting it out. So I'm going to work on this for a little bit and we'll see how it goes. Well, that was it. The trick to getting it out at the last point there was just to get the Y pipe off on both sides, which is a bit tricky because of the EGR valve on the other manifold. Try not to damage the spring there, but other than that, the exhaust manifold is off. We'll get it out and get it fixed up. Well, there's actually some good news. I was able to clean up the threads in the manifold and get the O2 sensor back in without having to take it to a machine shop. So we're going to put this back in later on today. I just have to order some manifold gaskets and get a new catalytic converter and we'll be back on the road.